Okay, going to the council meeting itself. Apologies for absence. I've got Ben, I think. Is there anybody else that's...
Councillor Manship is on holiday, Councillor Bentley is on holiday, and Councillors Byrne and Smith who are working.
Councillor
What's the reason as asked? Right, okay.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
I don't believe Councillor Islands attended a full council meeting. I was wondering if
What was the reason?
There's reasons for absence from the first four.
Okay. Okay, so we've got reasons for absence from the first four, and the procedure is to approve the reasons for the absence. So Phil, are you proposing?
Yep.
Excellent. Seconder?
Would you just allow me a minute to make a comment?
Yes, of course.
I'm quite, I'm trying to think of the word to describe it. Stuart refers to Councillor Island Senior. To be truthful, he's attended one out of the last 8 council meetings. But my concern is we're still, as a council, waiting for an apology from Councillor Island Senior about what he called us in a meeting. We did pass a resolution asking that when he attends a council meeting, that he makes that apology. Now, when the one he attended in May was the annual meeting, it wasn't on the agenda, but as far as I'm concerned, that has not been resolved, and we're still waiting for the apology. But as I say, he's only been to one in May since January, so I would like him to attend and actually say to us whether he's going to apologise or not, and then we can clarify the matter. But if it's continued absence like this, then I don't think it's acceptable, to be truthful.
Okay. Next slide. So we've got a proposer, a seconder.
Can I just ask a question?
His hand was up before. I'd like to get through this fairly straightforward statutory item first, but Jonathan, if you want to say something quickly, fire away.
Very quickly, yeah. I believe that speaking on my father's behalf, sorry, Councillor John Allen's behalf.
I can't hear you.
Oh, I believe he's attended every charity meeting and every finance meeting,
And it goes on
Please do try not to interrupt, councillors.
And what I suggest you go through correct procedures and follow standing rules.
I won't interrupt because you've now finished, but when he attends the charity and finance meeting, he tends to go on early once he signs a cheque.
Diane would like to move next business. So can we, are we happy we've got a proposal, we've got a seconder, all those in favour of, thank you. Okay, declaration of interest. A, so disclosable pecuniary interest. And B, dispensations. Jonathan.
Just the item 8C, that's a member of the gym.
8C.
It's not the old library, but it's the gym.
Okay, the gym.
It's not pecuniary, it's just a personal interest.
Personal interest.
And number 12, which is just correspondence from Robin Borough.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Proposer and seconder. Any other interests? Clive? Item 12. Any other interests? Okay. Proposer and seconder for those. Yeah, I can hear that. Thank you. All those in favour? Thanks very much. B, to receive and decide upon request for dispensations. Do we have any?
Not had any.
We haven't had any. 3, items to be considered. Okay. Shall we take that when we get to it? You're not sure if you will. Okay. Items to be considered in the absence of the public and the press.
I would recommend, Chairman, 6D.
6D.
8C, 8D, 8E, 8F and 8G.
Say that again, slowly.
6D, 8C.
8C.
8E. 6D, 8C.
8C, 8D, E, F and G. All of which involves confidential advice to be given to the council.
Is 8A?
I don't believe so.
It's just an update.
It's just an update.
Yep. So 6D, 8C, 8D, 8E, 8F and 8G. Any others? Jonathan?
Can I just ask a question regarding 6D? If it's regarding a contractor who's present, could they be discussed with this permission? With it, therefore, it's not really confidential. If we're not sure which contractor it is, but if it was a contractor who was present in the meeting, could it, with their permission, be discussed in a public session?
It's up to the council to decide. My advice would be that press and public are excluded for that item. 6D, as already mentioned.
Can I have a proposer and seconder for those? Diane? Phil? All those in favour? It's majority. So, to confirm the minutes of the meeting of the Parish Council held on Monday the 17th of August.
Well, actually, it should be the September minutes.
September.
It's a deliberate mistake, just to check you were
Just to
reading.
keep us thinking. 17th, it's the September meeting. Seventeenth of September. Okay, anything on page 1? Page 2? Oh, sorry, Clive.
Yeah, I'm not sure, I'm sure it's this last meeting, but did we not discuss a response from the Parish Council to the Rotherham advertising? Was that not a resolution passed?
From the Rotherham advertising.
Yeah, regarding the Harricroft quarry.
We had a discussion about it, but it was for information. It wasn't a resolution that was passed. Diane?
I believe that the resolution was that you were going to form a letter on behalf of the Parish Council as a response to that.
Under the old standing orders, I had the power to simply respond, but what I did at that meeting is asked councillors their opinions. We had a couple of different opinions, so I wrote a suitably neutral statement to the press. Clive?
Yeah, can I just pick up on that? I've got a couple, I've seen the article in the advertising. And my main concern is, I didn't think that we discussed that there were any, well, I didn't think we agreed that there were any economic benefits for Anston in this application, but in the article in the advertisement you've supplied to them, it says, and the Parish Council very much welcomes the economic benefits of reopening Harricroft quarry. Well, from my point of view, there aren't any economic benefits. There's lots of noise, traffic and dust. I think we're only going to get, there are only going to be about 3 jobs in the quarry, and I would suggest that they're not going to necessarily be given to Anston people. So I say I'm at a bit of a loss as to why we've got that bit
meeting,
in. But
I think
it's in there now.
Councillors, possibly 4 councillors, commented on economic advantage and employment.
Well, that's a nonsense because there isn't any for the village, in my view. But I don't know what other councillors' views are.
Thanks, Clive. Anything on page 3? Page 4? Page 5? Page 6? And the final page 7. Proposer and seconder for those?
It's just a general comment. Can I actually thank the clerk for the quality of the minutes that we now have, because they're actually readable, legible, understandable, and that's the improvement.
Thank you. I should go home now.
So I'd like to commend him on his efforts and work.
Thanks, Clive.
As long as he keeps it up.
Much appreciated from Chris there. How long does it take to compile a set of minutes?
A couple of hours.
Couple of hours. It's not an insignificant task, is it?
But as I say, they're vastly they're nearly a pleasure to read.
Proposed second.
I propose that one, kidder.
All those in favour? Thank you. Do you have any exclusive rights of burial?
Pardon?
Any rights of burial
No.
to authorize? No rights of burial to authorise.
Good.
Which is always a good thing. Okay, governance matters. To receive an update regarding casual vacancy on the council. So councillors, a notice of election has been circulated, and for your, I suppose, for your noting really there, date of the poll, if the election is to be contested, will be Thursday the 15th of November. Nomination papers to be received by 4 p.m. on Friday the 19th of October.
Can I ask a question of Councillor Ireland through the chair, please?
If you wish.
Councillor Ireland, I understand your name was on top of the 10 signatures. Did you call the election?
We've got a point of order. The actual questions to the council and councillors should give about 10 days' notice.
You're not obliged to. You're not obliged to respond.
It was called by 10 people within
So you didn't call. Sorry, you didn't call the election.
Anyway,
So you didn't call the election.
I'll stand by the Sunday rules.
I think you've made your points through.
At the end of the day, local electors are allowed to call the election.
There's nothing untoward that has occurred. I know members have a varying sort of range of opinions on the matter of calling elections and the costs thereof, but
Can I just clarify why I asked the question?
Nobody's done anything wrong.
To clarify why I asked the question, this is the third election that we're having to have. I'm a great believer in democracy, but I've said in the past, when I personally think some of these elections have been called for the sheer hurdle, and it's costing us in the region around £20,000, probably close to £20,000. And I think the reason I asked the question is because Councillor Allen's name was at the top of the list. With simple clarification of his called it, he's quite, as we say, legally allowed to do it because it's a democratic right. It's just I was a bit puzzled why he would sign a document to cost the council even more money.
I think that's probably a question to answer outside of this.
Called an election as well several years ago.
Okay, we're not going to get into a discussion about people's rights as citizens to call elections. Okay, so B, this one should be fairly quick to decide whether login details for the National Association of Local Councils should be shared with members of the council. Now, this is something that we've done in the past, and it's really here to reaffirm, if we wish to do so, the decision to supply those details to councillors so that they can get access to the services, the information that's provided by NALC. So I'll propose, for the sake of being quick, I will propose that we share those details with members.
I'll second this.
Stuart?
Can I just quickly come on this? For the parish council, for the local councils, we've always had permission. It's just that when we asked the last clerk, I think I remember asking the last clerk to do it and ask the information, it never happened. Can I just say, when the clerk sends the, provided we agree, when the clerk sends the password down, do look at the Yorkshire Local Council's members site and the National Association site. They have legal topics on there that are useful for councillors. So I suggest everybody goes and has a look when they get the passwords.
Jonathan, did you have your hand up? No. Great. Probably the microphone. Brilliant. So yeah, there's some really useful material there. So just to reaffirm the decision to do that. Proposed, seconded.
Would that negate the information still being circulated?
No. I mean, the object of the exercise is that you don't have to go through the clerk all the time to find reference material. Right.
Okay, all those in favour? Thank you. That was quick, wasn't it? Certainly by our standards, that was relatively quick. Okay, so C6, Chris has written a whole load of papers for us over the last sort of few weeks. This isn't one that we've managed to get circulated, so I'd like to propose that we defer this to the next meeting, and then Chris will have had time to write us a paper appraising all of the options and really giving us a view of what other councils do and what's recommended best practice. Chris, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, just to say, I haven't been too well over the last week. I was also away for 2 days. No. I'm speaking to the councillors, and that's all. Well, that's not the point, Hillary. Just by means of explanation, I wasn't too well last week. I was also away at a training event for 2 days. I've had to deal with not having any ground staff, so that's why I didn't manage to get all the papers for this meeting out. So if you're okay, I'll bring the paper to the next meeting.
I propose to declare that, please.
I propose second.
Okay.
All those in favour? Thank you. No, certainly no criticism, Chris.
No, it isn't, Chris, not one bit, kid, you've done a sterling job.
Okay, 6D has gone into confidential session. Planning matters, so 7, planning application Planning application RB 2018-1466, which is an application to fell and prune various trees. Stuart's there with his hand. Stuart.
Can I suggest that it's regarding the tree preservation order, so it will be for what the correct term, the arbor, yes, the tree man.
The tree man. The tree man at Rotherham.
So can I?
It is a tree man.
I think we've had requests on this before at Limecombe, so can I suggest that we leave this to the arboriculturist at RMBC?
Tree surgeon, Jonathan.
The
Tree surgeon, between me and you, mate.
The arboriculturalist.
Seconded. It's not this one. I think it was actually my neighbours that had the last set of trees. This is further down the road. I think.
Or opposing it?
We're leaving it to the arboriculturalist.
Making no comment.
No comment.
No objection. We'll leave it to the arboriculturist.
Okay. Proposer and seconder for that. I'll propose it. Seconder. All those in favour. No comment. Great. RB 2018-1475, demolition of detached garage, erection of detached outbuilding with room in the roof space, and amended means of access and a boundary wall. This is 13 Crowgate, South Anston. Consider any response required. Clive?
I've actually I've missed this one, so I will go away and have a look. I presume it's in the conservation area at South Anston, although it should say that on the application. Has anybody else looked at the application?
I had a quick look at it.
I had a quick look. I believe it's a detached garage to the rear of the property.
Next to Crowgate, isn't it?
It's Crowgate. As you start to go up Crowgate, it's on the left, I think. Way before that. I think it's somewhere in the vicinity of Axel. I think it's in the vicinity of Axel Lane in that area. But from what I can see, it's a detached garage to the back of the property, and as it says with roof space, I can't remember for the life of me what the amended access was, though.
I can't recall the specifics of the application, but I don't think there's anything particularly controversial on it.
It's in a
fairly
conservation area,
straightforward
so
planning
I propose that
application.
we leave that to the...
Excuse me, the bungalow that you're referring to, wasn't it turned down some time ago?
I think that's a different one.
Is it?
It's in a conservation area, and for the life of me, I can't remember what the access was. Can I suggest that we leave this to the planners, because it will be looked at. We've been in the conservation area.
No response. Okay, propose that the council makes no response to that. Seconder. All those in favour? We'll leave that to the experts in planning. Dan. She did. She's very, very slightly there before you. You were grabbing the microphone, you see, Clive.
Slowing down.
Just to update people, if they haven't already noticed, that the flats conversion on Bank Street's been turned down. Yes. We did object to that, and obviously they have taken some notice.
But not all.
Not all.
Unfortunately, none on Pennypiece Lane. Sorry, Clive. My apologies. Far away.
Can I just add to that? I've looked at that this afternoon, and it's quite bizarre because the previous application for that property was passed, was granted, but for some reason they put another application in. They've altered the elevations, and it's that's got turned down. The traffic highway engineers had no problem with traffic, which we did, and it's the street scene. So as far as I can see, all they're going to do is revert back to the previous application that was granted and submit that, because it will get through. It's been done once. I think what they've done is altered the roofscape and everything else. Whether that's to save money, I don't know, but it's got turned down because of its appearance more than anything else. And I think if they don't appeal, they'll certainly submit the earlier one in June that was granted, and I just found it a strange application altogether. But there you go. And if I can just add one more, Chair, while I'm at it, you've probably seen the one that the clerk sent round about Kivington Park Steel and Wire Works, the one at the side of the canal. That was refused as well, but I've contacted the RMBC planners on that just to make sure what the position is. They can put a new planning application in, I understand, but my information is that the applicant is considering appealing the refusal, which may lead to an inquiry. So I've asked them to keep me updated on that, because, as I say, they can put a full planning application in again, or they can go to appeal. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. So it might just be a temporary refusal as it stands. Okay.
Wasn't that on the grounds that they had submitted a plan that didn't actually pertain to the land?
It's the site plan area, it was incorrect.
Bring
I think
that
what
one,
they'll do, instead of leaving it to inquire, appeal, or they'll submit it. I also asked them to make sure the next time that they let us comes in on the application rather than submitting to Wales. And he said it falls between two, so we'll let both parish councils know at the end of the day.
And they are going to let both parish councils know.
Let us know.
The next one. Great. Okay, thank you. So we're on to 8. 8A, is to receive an update regarding repairs to the roof of the parish hall. Chris?
Just to say that the emergency repairs have been completed.
And we no longer have any stained ceiling tiles. The ceiling tiles have been replaced as well.
There's one or two down there possibly, but we have put some new ceiling tiles up as well.
Great. Thanks very much, Chris.
It's been noted that was outstanding for 18 months, and it appears to be getting in the last couple of years.
So we had you to council then.
Thank you very much, Chris. Much appreciated. Okay. B, which is to note the findings of the recent asbestos survey and consider any action. So this is something that we discussed in a little bit of detail at the finance meeting, the charity and finance meeting earlier. Yeah, last week. Not sure which week my brain happens to be in at the moment. I blame the dodgy ears. But we had a discussion then about the cost of continually having an asbestos survey each year, and whether that could be offset by simply removing asbestos, particularly in this building, because we know in quite a lot of detail exactly where it is and what it is. So we've got a couple of councillors wanting to speak, Jonathan and Stuart. But Chris, is there anything that you want to add to that? There's a paper attached to the agenda.
I think just to specifically flag up what the survey flags up is that there's some asbestos which is red flagged, it's requiring removal. Therefore, what I'm seeking is the agreement of the council to get that red flagged. I think there's some brown flagged asbestos as well removed. The other asbestos, as long as it's not disturbed elsewhere in the building and in the old library, is okay where it is. But I wouldn't be averse to getting rid of it. But what I specifically would like support for is getting a contractor out to remove the dangerous asbestos, the red and brown flagged asbestos.
Do you have a quote yet for that, or is this just a seek authorisation?
I have one quote from Bardon Environmental, which is just over 4,000 to remove that asbestos, the one that's in the old boiler room. I think it would be sensible to get perhaps 2 other quotes, because I do sometimes feel that Bardon are perhaps rather expensive. Could be doing them a disservice, but I don't know, but I haven't tested the market.
Can I do Jonathan, Stuart, Clyde?
I was just making a proposal that we note the findings, and then we ask the clerk, as you said, to get 2 more quotes, and then bring back to council for a decision on what we need to do.
Okay, propose?
Yeah.
Stuart?
So just to reiterate what the clerk said, there is two red flags up, a medium flag. I think there's 4 or 5 yellow flags. I think most of us have seen that. We definitely have to get rid of or take action on the red flags, and I would suggest also on the medium one. What's the proposal? The proposal is to...
His proposal was to note the findings and ask the clerk to seek quotes.
Right, so can I just add to that? I think we should... I agree, because we need to get rid of the red ones, definitely, if we can do it. But can I ask that we get a quote for the yellow ones as well? Because there is an ongoing cost yearly for an inspection. And every so many years, our staff have to have asbestos training. Now, I know a lot of them is what I call low-level under carpets, but it still is a hazard. So maybe we should look at getting rid of all of it. Can we ask the clerk, let's say, to bring back some quotes? And give the clerk delegated powers to deal with the red ones that are flagged up.
Great. Clive, Bev, Phil.
Yeah, can I just try and, if I can help Chris out, if you contact Mike Mullins, I don't know what you've done. Have you contacted Mike Mullins at RMBC about...
Not about the specific issue.
But what I'm saying is you could contact him, they'll have a register of specialist asbestos contractors, so if you want two more, they should be able to supply you with them. Chris, it'll save you searching around then, if you just email him asking. Okay.
Okay. Bev?
I was just going to say, yeah, while we're having a quote for the red areas, let's have it for everything. You know, if they can do us a quote for the red and then the red and the other ones. You know, if they might as well do it all in one go if it's not going to be that much different.
Thanks very much. We'll go with Phil, then to Diane. Phil?
Yeah. No, I agree with I heartily concur, yeah. We do need quotes, and let's offset, say, right, we've got this to do first, but also have a quote for job lot. So then we can offset one against the other, so we know that in a certain time after so long, is it going to cost us more? Is it like, let's get it over and done with? We can make that decision as a council then. Okay?
Thanks very much. Okay.
Can I just ask, is it a legal requirement to have an asbestos survey annually? If so, getting rid of it still means we're going to have
The legal requirement, because I looked at the legislation, says regularly, the guidance from the Health and Safety Executive, which it's reasonable as for us to be following, says annually.
Okay. So even if we got rid of it, we'd still have to pay for a survey. That's what I'm asking.
Even if we got rid of the red blank asbestos, we will still have to have another survey next year if there are still any asbestos in the
So
building.
getting rid of it is still not going to get rid of the annual fee.
No, if it's removed, then yes, it would.
Rid of it all.
Oh, excuse me.
If we get rid of all the asbestos, then there's no
that's
need.
fine, but doing it piecemeal is still not going to get rid of the annual fee. That's what I'm trying to get to.
So can I ask members of the public please not to interrupt? I think we're having pretty much exactly the same conversation that you're having, but we need to go through the process of having that discussion. So we've had some councillors that obviously have one opinion. We've just heard from several councillors that are of the opinion that we should look to remove it all, to remove the fee associated with the annual report. Okay. Phil, are you... everybody happy?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a proposal on the table which is to seek quotes and bring those back. Jonathan, right of reply or anything?
I'm not sure what the proposal is.
Proposals to seek quotes.
I'll amend it slightly, that's fine.
Yep.
To include what people say. To seek quotes for each, I'll say on link first and go for proposal. For each before, because even the green ones need to be inspected annually as well.
Yeah.
So, depending on how much the annual inspection is, which I'm not sure, £100,000,
Hundreds.
then we can weigh up whether it's worth leaving some in place. Depends what close it is, then.
So are you proposing that the clerk seeks quotes for each of the options that he's outlined and brings those back to us?
Can I just...
Too much on you for getting close to
There we go.
At the very least...
What would you like us to...
At the very least, I want your authority to get 2 additional quotes for removing the red and brown flagged asbestos in this building. Yeah.
I'll leave that as an initial proposal. And of course, we can always come back with doing
What I can do, because there's asbestos in the old library as well, although that's not high risk, is when I get 2 additional contractors out to look at the high and medium risk in this building, I can ask them to quote for removing all the asbestos in this building, the old library, and I might have to get Borden Environmental just to quote for, they might have to come back out and quote again for the yellow.
So we need a proposal then to allow the
I think
fact
that's the proposal.
to see 3 quotes
For the whole lot.
for the whole lot, and to be given delegated powers to deal with the red and the brown regions, the high risk and the medium.
Would you like that to be delegated to?
I'll second that.
Are you happy for that wording, so for the clerk to see quotes and be given delegated authority to act on the highest risk?
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Seconder? Thanks. Lots of you. All those in favour. So he's going to go and seek some quotes and he's got authority to act for the most significant asbestos. Okay, so D, F, E, F and G are into confidential session. Nine is to note arrangements for the bonfire and fireworks display on Monday the 5th of November and consider any action required. So Chris, is there anything you want to update us on here? Or?
I think, and bear in mind this is the first one I've been involved in, I think everything's coming together. We are a little bit short on first aiders and marshals at the moment, but we are working on it. And Drew, I've had a conversation with you about perhaps roping in some of your...
We're roping half the medical school.
Yeah.
We'll try anyway. But I think certainly the other thing that we met when we had a discussion about it was that really to encourage all councillors. I know that not all councillors always attend, but please, councillors, if you can attend the bonfire night and help out, be that for marshalling or anything else on the night, please do try and attend. It's a really good fun evening, but and it's actually on bonfire night this year. Anything else that we need to update?
I don't think so. There's a lot of work we need doing between now and the day, which I might send you emails about. But other than those 2 issues, everything else seems to be on track.
Last couple of years I've done the radios, and they all may not be attending this year. I don't know. So probably going to need somebody to do the radios.
We may need somebody for the radio.
So we need a volunteer to do the radios. I can brief them on what they need to do, but it's just in case I can't make it for the night. If I can't make it for the night, I can't do the radios.
Okay.
Sorry.
We happy with that? No action really required other than to ask councillors to attend if able. B, to note arrangements for Remembrance Day on Sunday the 11th of November and consider any action required. So the Remembrance Service and the parade from here are going ahead as normal, as far as we're aware anyway. Anything else that you wanted to update us on, Chris?
So you're giving a reading.
Yep.
The reef has been ordered, so...
Can I just come in and reiterate? I think I spoke to most councillors the last Wednesday, last meeting about attendance. It would be nice. I think is it the word commemorative this year? It'd be nice to see more councillors attend on the day to make a bit of a special effort. We normally only get 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, probably about 4, 5 councillors maximum. It is the end, not celebrating, commemorating the century. So if anybody wants to attend and they're not sure, if they arrive, say for things about 9:30 in the parish car park, we then all group together with the scouts and guides and brownies, and then we all do should we say, a slow march up to the Lich Gate. The more, the better, I think, for this year.
I think it's actually probably worth noting, so Chris said, but I'm not sure you all heard, actually this year the Vicar's asked us to give a reading, so we'll be provided with a reading. Thanks very much, Phil, that was really useful. So we'll be provided with a reading and I'll read it on behalf of the Parish Council. And the other thing for us to do is the trees that are in progress. Is the tree sorted, the commemorative tree, do we know?
Not yet, because of being short-staffed over the last week.
Fine, no problems, it's not over then. Yeah. No, I just tell them that free.
Great, yeah.
Hillary? On the centenary this year, we're ordering a special tree out here. Now, we've gone, as most of you know, in the car park of the old library, the original tree was there where they gave them the King's Shilling, apparently, which I do know. They gave them the King's Shilling originally and signed you up, and the tree's now gone outside the old library. But we're having one put out here. Don't know yet. It's a special one. We're having different colours for a different year. I don't know if... No, Hillary, let me explain. You're making me stutter because you're not listening to me.
Can I ask,
Please.
members of the public, anything needs to go through the chair, but this isn't really part of the meeting for public participation.
We're ordering one with a different colour. It might be a copper beech. We're ordering one a little bit different. One, it's going to stand here for over 100 years, but it's going to have a different colour to it, like a red tinge. So basically, it will be like a poppy colour, and it comes out at this time of year. So we've got to order this one in, and that is what I'm planning. We're going to have it out here, out here, down the car park here, so we have it as a memorial, not just thing. As the oak tree's gone, we're now putting it in, and we're going to have just to celebrate our.
This is public participation.
Okay. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the answer to that is it's work in progress, isn't it?
Work in progress, yes.
Is he going to shut around it to protect it?
Yeah, we've sorted that one out already with the ground staff.
Okay. Stuart and Jonathan wants to come in there. Are you done? Done. Jonathan. Diane.
Regarding Reverend State, I'll give them apologies now because I'll be serving between all the three that work here on the
Okay. Thank you. Diane. Yep.
Sorry, Diane.
Thank you. Dan's now appointed as chief mover of the council on to the next business. Okay. Grant applications 9C. So to consider whether grant applications should be considered on a rolling basis or at set times of the year. Okay, we've got Stuart, Jonathan, Clive.
I think this is quick and easy. We've discussed a little bit about the grant applications. I think we're now more au fait of what we're trying to achieve. I think we came to a consensus when we had some meetings a long time ago that we would do the applications at set times of the year. So I'm going to propose that we consider the grant applications at a date in November and a date in May. That's the proposal.
Okay, I'll second that. So we've got an order. So we've got Stuart, we've got Jonathan, we've got Clive, now we've got Bev on the end. Jonathan.
Well, personally, I think we should run a rolling programme because it could have the effect on some community groups where they miss out on funding because they don't need it at a certain time. They may not need to apply in November. They may in December decide they have to wait till later. And it used to work quite well on a rolling programme a few years ago. And then I believe we should take each case as it comes and not just twice a year. This will rule people out who probably deserve money more than others. That's it.
Great. Thanks, Clive.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Ireland. I mean, we have two people the other month complain about that their grant applications are not being dealt with at all, and I don't think that this two set times works. I think it's, as Jonathan said, if you get in at the wrong time, you sat waiting 6 months and the event might have passed, and I think it should be done like we used to in the finance meetings and consider them as and when they arrive. The clerk can supply them with us and we can make the decisions there and then. I think it's going to be a lot more helpful to community groups doing it that way, so I would support Jonathan's proposal.
I was just going to add that I think it's important that if people are applying to us by filling the applications in for grants, that we do at least get back in touch with them straight away and say, we have received it, the next time we'll be looking at it as either in a rolling period, although I think 6 months is a long time, perhaps if we even did it in quarters, but we do need to get back to them.
To them.
We do need to get back to them and say, yes, we have received it and we will be looking at it shortly. You know, not just sort of leaving it so that they don't know that we are considering it.
Thanks very much. Me and then Diane, if that's all right.
Yeah, fine.
Brilliant. So I agree with Stuart and Bev, actually. I think the reason why, and I'll keep it as brief as possible, I think oh, sorry, that better?
No, it's the public.
Members of the public, Hilary, please. Yeah, but please don't, because it interrupts the council meeting. Okay, thank you. Originally, when we set up a working group to review the grants policy, we said that we would review grants twice a year. That policy was never really properly implemented, and that's the problem. Not the fact that they're coming in on a rolling basis or not, but the problem was that the groups were never informed by the office at the time. I propose that we go with the 2 dates specified. What it lets you do is it lets you compare the standard of the applications against each other. I think in the past the council did make some decisions on grant funding. Certainly previous councils made some decisions that perhaps weren't necessarily in the spirit of the legislation governing grants. Bev?
Sorry, it's me. Was it?
Not Bev, sorry. Diane!
It's me.
It's you.
I'm on. Okay. I think reviewing it twice a year would mean that we would look more closely at the applications. I think, again, with Bev, that they need to be acknowledged as they come in, but we only set aside a certain amount of money per year for this, and if we do it on a rolling programme, there is a danger of us actually giving away the money that we haven't actually got to give away. And therefore, if you look at it twice a year, you're more likely to look at a valid application rather than one that's just been put in because we can have a grant.
Thank you. Hilary, please. Okay, I think we've seen most of the arguments. Fire away.
This was going to be my point, actually. We must take care not to exceed the budget. The budget is reduced, and it's now down to 2,500 per year. We're talking about projects up to 500 a year and all this sort of thing. We very easily can overstep that budget. In fact, we've issued forms here for the higher of all reduced fees, and there's nothing in the budget for that. So we've got to be very, very careful what we do at the next session. What we're going to do about it.
Thanks, Philip. I think we've heard all of the opinions on either side, so Stuart would like his right to reply.
The reason I've said to do it just twice a year is, don't forget, we're not necessarily sticking to the £50 or £100 here and there. If we do it twice a year, we were said that what we'd look at is all the applications, and we could, if we wished, give one group or one sector more than the others, and it will help if we've got all the applications there to maybe decide on a priority. So some groups may actually benefit better than what they have in the past. I take the point about nothing's been done this year, and I think that's because we've had confusion. And again, I agree with you, some groups have put applications, got none. But the purpose of this discussion and previous ones in the last month or so is to sort the situation out, to get to a point where we can move forward and we can have a standard to go for in the future.
We did.
So I've made the proposal, so it's really there to vote on.
Sorry, we need to ask you to stop interrupting.
Could we ask you not to interrupt, though? Sorry? Just to answer, yeah, we did. We created a grants policy. We did that. Okay. But can I ask members of the public to raise their questions at the appropriate points in the meeting? Stuart, just before we come to your right of reply, Oh,
I've done it.
no, I mean to finish it. I just wanted to comment, rather than raise an amendment as such, but you said November and May. If it is carried, does that leave us enough time for the November one?
Well, I'm flexible on dates. The only reason I said November is because if there's any outstanding grants, we can have them in. We normally get grants for Christmas, so we could have them in for Christmas, and it would just then a 6-month gap, which brings it to next May next year. There wasn't a fixed date, so if councillors are agreed to do it twice a year and have got a preference for the dates, I'm quite happy to change them.
Can I just make one point? If you get granted, if you have it in November for Christmas and somebody puts a grant in the first week of December, they're not going to get it in May. Pointless.
But the idea is they should have the grant in before November.
But what happens if they can't? There's
Well,
no flexibility
they don't get
in
it.
that system. Well, I'm sorry, but
Yeah, I think we're probably ready to go to the vote here. Stuart, do you want to keep your proposal wording? So you could just give us your wording again?
I think there's some support for it, so I'll keep as is. The vote will decide the outcome, so I'll keep it as is.
In that case, can I propose an amendment?
Do whatever you want.
Okay.
Entitled to.
I would just add at the end, so you suggested November and December. Can I amend that just to allow some discretion on the part of the clerk with the dates?
Yeah, quite easy. I'm not worried.
Are you happy to amend your original proposal to say that, or do you want to vote on the amendment?
It actually would be better for me if you're going to have set dates, that you set those dates, because then I have something to work to. Right.
Okay, in that case, withdrawn. Vote on Stuart's proposal.
and have a recorded vote.
Of course.
It could be any time towards the end of November.
Brilliant. We're not, I mean, I know that Bev's quite new and a couple of others have. The way that the protocol works is that normally we only speak once on each, but seeing as Clive and I have spoken twice, do you want to add something else?
I'm just going to say, does that proposal include that we are going to let them know, you know, get back to them and say, yes, we have received it, we will be looking at it for
Yeah,
8
to acknowledge
days.
receipt in
Yeah.
the office. I mean, actually, I think that's something that you would
Don't
do as a
need
matter of
to
course
do
now.
that, so.
That's something that
Done anyway.
you would do.
So,
I guess in the
so
past it wasn't.
let's decide the issue then.
Okay, so we've got a proposal which is to consider grant applications in November and May.
Secondary recorded.
Seconded. Yeah, seconded. All those in favour? We need a recorded vote as well, don't we?
Really helps. Okay, and again.
Okay.
You need to ask for against. It's a recorded vote, so you need to ask for against.
Against.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. External meetings, so 10 to receive a report from Councillors Bentley and Thornton. Councillor Bentley's not here tonight.
I can do it
Do
very
you want
quickly.
to give us an
I'll give it
update?
quickly. Councillor Bentley actually put his apologies in that night, so he couldn't attend. I'm not sure whether he's away or not. Massively quick report. I put the postcode to that address. I think it's in Killington, and end up in Montbreton, I think it was, in Barnsley. I put it in my second sat-nav, which I just happened to have, and it did exactly the same. I do believe the same happened last year when I tried to get to this meeting. So the short and shift of it is I didn't get there because the sat-nav information is wrong. So I will be bringing it up at the next meeting.
Well, in the meantime, I will email Wiles about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Is
spent...
the directions on the email were wrong?
I got to Monkbreton, exactly where the sat-nav said it was, and I spent another half hour collaring local people, asking if any of them heard of the location, and none of them had.
6 or 8 miles
Yeah, I was quite... When I looked at the map later, I bet I was a good 5, 6, 7 mile away. So the long and gist of it is, I didn't get to it, but I'll bring it up next
Sorry,
time.
please don't interrupt, Hillary. Yeah, it's not the point at part of the meeting to make those comments, and they weren't really useful. Okay, so B,
Do you want me to...
receive a report from the clerk and councillor Turton on conference.
I'll give you... This is a brief report. I'll be honest, I didn't really actually take notes of it tonight, so I've written some quick notes. Just before I forget, I have got some death by viewfoil information if any councillors want to asked me for it later. I'll just go through quickly. It's not going to be a detailed one. So the training was at the Fairfield Manor Hotel in York, or just outside York. We had a quick welcome from the Mayor of York, and followed by a brief on introduction from it was the Chairman of National Association of Local Councils, Chief Executive, which basically gave us a briefing of what they do, how they do it, and possibly an insight into what they're looking towards in the future. Again, it's in these documents if you want to have a quick look. Then we had, and I'll try to change the order, we had then a couple of, shall we say, briefings from various other councils. One was from Church Fenton Parish about how they acquired a pub and a shop, and a little bit of information about that. We had a brief from Hepworth Without, which is a parish council just outside Yorkshire, Hepworth Out, and they gave a briefing about how they'd progressed after basically they found out that the clerk hadn't been carrying out the job properly. There was no training records, there was no contracts for employees, no lots. So again, I've got the brief here if you want to look at it. Before that or after that, I can't remember which, we had a practical session where each group of tables were given various subjects to look at. Our table, which included the clerk, we were asked to look at, I can't remember the exact wording of the question, but it was to do with why councillors, how to encourage more people to become councillors. Top of my head again, some of the points we brought up was funding. I brought up funding about individual independent members having to pay for their own leaflets at great cost. Somebody suggested we should have more information on council websites about the role of the job, and another one was training. There was other things, but this is just a quick brief. We then in the afternoon had workshops. I attended a code of conduct workshop, which again explained roughly about the code of conduct. I did ask about local authority councillors making declarations of interest. I didn't get a formal answer because it wasn't that type of training. I also asked briefly about dispensations, and it appears that if somebody wants a dispensation, they are quite restricted areas, and it's something that needs to be looked at quite carefully. I also attended a workshop on responsibilities of an employer, which basically went into things like contracts for your clerk, various procedures you should hold, etc. Again, I can give individual councillors more information if they need it. I attended a workshop on insurance risk management, and again, this was a presentation of what councils should be expecting to have insured. Again, it went through a wide range of different areas. Basically, everything we do or own should be insured of some way or other. And the last workshop I attended at the end of the day was financial management and budget setting. It was on about audits, internal, external audits, and briefly it went on about how to set a budget, but sadly we was running out of time, so that particular issue didn't go into as much detail as it did. There's a lot more that went on that day, so if anyone wants to ask any questions, I'm quite happy to give them an answer.
Thanks, Stuart.
Can I just say one thing? I keep reiterating, and you're probably going to get sick of this. Can I urge all councillors, wherever, to go on courses? You learn a vast amount on these courses, but you also learn a lot of what goes on at other councils.
Okay.
And believe it or not, when you do listen to what's going on at other councils, we're not doing too bad at all.
Noted, thank you. Please do try not to interrupt. Okay, so 11A, which is the car park at Scafell Place. Bev, do you want to take this one, or shall I?
The thing was, and then if you say what you did with Loughborough Council, I was approached by residents at Scafell Place to ask us if we could look at clearing the car park area. There's a section where there's about 12 car parking spots, and it was sort of covered in rubbish and it had been neglected, no one was looking after it, to see if we could find out who actually owned it, and if we could get it organised so that it would be cleared. So Drew went with me and we had a little look at it, and we have cleared the area. Drew's been in touch with Rotherham Borough Council to try and find out who actually owned it, because we thought, well, if we clear it, we need to find out who owns it, because it needs to then be upkept. Yeah, it's, if you go up Lakeland and then onto Ullswater, it's the second right as you go up Ullswater. Sorry, Thirlmere.
Turn right off Thirlmere.
Yeah, sorry, Thirlmere. And you contacted Borough Council, didn't you? To try and find out who
following
owned it?
Following from that, I got in touch with the Borough Council, who said they don't own it, they don't maintain it, it's unadopted. A bit of digging on Planning Portal and looking at sort of transfers indicated that it's probably still in the ownership of the successor of the original property developer. The only company that I could find ceased trading several years ago. One of the residents suggests that there is possibly a management company that runs it, but it's difficult to, at the moment, it's difficult to ascertain ownership of that land. So it was really just to give you an update. If we're to try, it's in the parish, it looked a little bit untidy. It's certainly something if we could help a local resident. So we were originally going to propose that we as a parish council sought to find out who the owner of that land was, and then either raise the issue with the borough or take it further. But I think since then we've had a potential lead with this property management company, so it might be worth us deferring onto the next, deferring the item.
Yeah, the lady got back in touch with me and said she thought it was owned by a company called Simica, but that was only last week that she's got back to me with that. So yeah, we need to try and find out who Simica is. I was getting an address off her, but I haven't been able to, unfortunately, see her to get this address.
What did you say, Drew? I couldn't get the word. Potential what?
Sorry, Hilary, not
Potential what?
not really the time to interrupt.
Well, I'm asking you for clarification. No, you
I think you need to ask members of the council whether you want this continued interruptions.
Advice from the clerk is to ask the councillors whether or not they wish to tolerate these continued interruptions from members of the public. Councillor Thornton.
By definition, they are.
Can I s-
We do pay the rate.
Can I ask, I think we're all aware what's going on with the situation. Can I suggest on this particular occasion that we just ask members of the public to desist, please? But if it continues, then I think we should go to the vote on whether we should ask the members of the public to leave.
Members,
I'm asking politely for members of the public to desist interrupting. I can't do any more.
For clarification, we have to report back to quite a lot of residents, because they've all come down here and listened to the...
Okay, I think this is perhaps where the council has... Sandra, do you mind? This is where the council has erred in the past, in that members of the public are entitled to come to meetings and to observe, but actually, in this particular part of the meeting, it's councillors discussing this with each other. Actually, members of the public aren't entitled to ask. You're sitting in and observing the meeting, but it's a conversation between councillors who will then make those decisions. Members of the public can contact individual councillors and ask individual councillors to raise points for them, but we're getting continued interruption. This part of the meeting isn't there as a dialogue between members of the public and the councillors. There's no right to ask those questions. Sometimes we might bring members of the public in where appropriate. Colin.
I think, Hilary, you've been here longer than me. You ought to know, this is a council meeting. It is not an interactive forum. Let me finish. You ask questions at the beginning of a meeting, and you ask questions after the meeting. You should not. We can't conduct our business with this continual to and fro. You may very well have a strong opinion, and you're entitled to it, but let us get on with the business and ask your questions afterwards. It's quite simple.
Please, Chair, don't play the whole group.
And speak clearly then, please.
I'm going to ask the members of the public politely not to interrupt the meeting again. We don't have many points to consider before we actually get to the public comment section, so can you please hold your thoughts until then. Okay, so that was a brief update for us. Clive?
Yeah, can I just say, I read that with interest, so I contacted the Borough Council as well. I'm still waiting a reply from Highways as to whether that area is adopted. There's also another area of land off Thurley, lower down, it's a similar thing, which is a car park. To my understanding, these areas are obviously states when we were built in the 70s. They didn't sort of do the management of amenity areas, they're not likely to do it now, because that's the planning condition. So I think we're better off waiting and finding out exactly who, if anybody else, is responsible for this before we take it on, because it's not actually our responsibility anymore. And I think what we'll finish up doing if we're not careful is we're taking more and more work on for our staff when somebody else probably should be doing it. So I say I'm still awaiting a response on that.
Just to clarify, I've been in contact with Highways and they state that it's not adopted and they're not able to. They've got a land terrier team that I think you're probably aware of.
I'm still awaiting my answer, so I'll ask if we can wait until we find, if they can find a management company or somebody else.
If you can get a different answer, that's brilliant. We'll bring it back to the next agenda. Are we happy to defer? So this is probably one that I can bring Chris in on, actually, because he's got the full details, but this was a suggestion from a resident to place some planters near the parish boundary marker. So we've got the boundary stones, but actually it sounds like quite a nice villagey thing to do, to have a few plants around there. But Chris, do you want to
not really anything
take it from there?
Add to it. That was just a proposal from a member of the public to add some plants to the area around the boundary. Well, not the boundary markers, but the actual markers that you pass when you come into the village itself.
Stuart, you're first.
Yeah, I've no objection to this in principle. I mean, to be honest, my way I look is more flowers the better. It brightens the place up. But I've got reservations. And the reservation is we already spend, I can't remember if it's £400 in the summer and the same again in winter, but it's definitely £400 a year. We actually buy flowers and put them in planters. Now, if we were to put them on, I think there's at least 6 boundary stones, it's going to add a fairly big cost onto that. So I would be in favour, providing we look at making savings somewhere else. Bearing in mind we've got £20,000 we've got to find for elections, and on top of that we've had 30,000 taken away from us from RMBC, and I've no doubt they'll be doing it more. I think as a council, if we're going to propose new things, we need to be seriously looking at making savings in other areas to prevent the precept going up on a massive scale. I'm all for it in principle, but probably not at the moment.
Okay. Can I make a proposal just to get us moving? I'd like to propose that we delegate this matter to the clerk and authorise him to place planters/plants at the boundary markers, subject to remaining within the original budgeted expenditure.
As far as I'm concerned, the expense of planters would outweigh the actual plants. If the plants could be planted in the ground rather than in planters and not obscuring the boundary signs, that would be one benefit. And if they were not annual plants, but perennial plants, then that would be one thing that only needed to be bought, not on an annual basis. There are plenty of perennial plants that would give you colour, not just in the summer but throughout the year.
Clive?
Yeah, can I just say, if we're going to do that, I think we need to look at the type of planter that we purchase, because we've had the timber ones before that rot, set fire to, broken up, so it's got to be something that's fairly sturdy, because some of these boundary stones are out on a limb, such as the one on Lakeland Drive. If you put a planter there that's movable with nice plants in it, you can say good night to it, like we've lost hanging baskets before. So we've really got to think about this as to what we put there and whether it can be moved. Nobody's going to move the boundary stones, but they may well move a planter if it's liftable.
Okay, Colin.
I was just going to say, I agree with what you're saying. Is it not feasible for us to buy like iron planters and actually get our guys to screw them into the stones on the reverse side of the plaque? If you don't want to plant them in the ground and you don't want your planter to go walkabout, screw it to the stone. No, but what, a little planter like that screwed to the
They did
banister?
have those at Wales and they broke them and stolen already on metal planters.
Anyone else who wants to come in?
It's a good idea, but it needs to
Sounds fair, I think that.
Okay, ladies and gents, Jonathan.
Right, I quite support the chairman's proposal. Whether we do have to be planters when there's plenty of soil underneath, but that's a matter we can deal with. That's not really a great issue at the moment, really. But
Perennials and annuals.
Well, let me explore
let
that.
the discretion and
Okay, thanks very much. So the original proposal was to effectively delegate this to the clerk, subject to remaining in budget, and leave it to the clerk's discretion to have ground planters, subject to remaining within budget. Seconded by Colin. Any other comments? Okay. To the vote, please. All those in favour.
Can we just pull go for the thing then? I quite agree with this. What budget we're talking about? Stay within the budget, I agree with it entirely, but just to define which budget we're talking about, is that the
I simply stated within budget. We don't have a specific flower budget as such. Yeah.
Well, that's going to change. If you just the general budget, well, that's going to change my mind.
We've got budget headings that specify expenditure on the environmental and we've got budgets that are attached to each of the bits of grass that we own, really. Yeah. All those in favour? Five? It was five.
I won't necessarily look for flowers in the plant, I'll look at all the options.
Okay, thank you. Correspondence 12. RMBC Town and Parish Council Winter Partnership Scheme. So this is the scheme that, amongst other things, we have a relatively heated discussion about this one every year around this scheme. Can we keep it reasonable? I mean, we voted in the same direction for the last few years, but can we keep this discussion reasonably brief? Jonathan, and I thought Stuart would. I didn't quite know who would be first, but fire away, Jonathan.
I'd just like to make a proposal with this one. I'm interested in it, but proposal not to take part in the Winter Partnership Scheme because of the added cost of storing salt and everything else really. But everyone is open to be a snow warden themselves, where the borough will give them salt gloves, protective gear. So anyone volunteers to be a snow warden.
Stuart?
Not to.
The proposal's not to accept it.
Yes.
Okay, I agree entirely. I make this point every year, and there are also members of the public who disagree with me. It's not just a simple case of being wardens, it's asking the clerk to send returns to the RMBC every week. It's a case of we have nowhere to store the salt, and we'd have to have a special concrete case. It also involves insurance. If our guys are putting salt down in places outside council land, we have an insurance issue. And if we take the scheme on, then there's the issue of who's responsible for a member of the public. Over. Now, RMBC say if they have trained, we're covered. I don't think that for 1 second. So I would agree to take this on.
Can I second the proposal?
Clive?
Yeah, can I just add, I know somebody that took up this offer and they've actually not doing it anymore because it's become that complicated. Other than putting salt and grit down, it's become a sort of longer-winded system, and I think they've changed their mind about it this year. They did enter into it for 2 or 3 years, but I think they've had enough of it. So that's only from my experience. So I agree.
The only things that I'm hearing are that we should again not take part in it because of all the various limitations and sort of factors against. Brilliant. Okay. Proposed, seconded. All those in favour. Thank you. Okay. 13. To consider any comments or questions from members of the public regarding items discussed by the council earlier in the meeting.